Joining me now is the former director of both the NSA and CIA under President George W. Bush, retired four-star General Michael Hayden. General Hayden, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jake.
Many Democrats and even Senator John McCain has suggested that if Trump is not going to confront Putin with this, that the summit should be canceled. What do you think?
No, my view is it's going to go on. We know that. They've already said that. If I were still in government, I would probably say it has to go on, but I would then make that condition. This is your chance, Mr. President. You've got a document beyond speculation. You actually have evidence, which the intelligence community couldn't roll out in that intelligence community assessment. Here we've got solid, forensic, detailed evidence that the president can make use of. And so, as a citizen now, I would say, let's do it. And then I want to watch to see what the president does.
No, the White House points to the fact that no American is indicted in this indictment. There are no assertions that any American knowingly worked with any of these Russian military intelligence officers. With that in mind, the White House and Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, have said, so that should be the end of it. What do you make of it when you see all these unnamed individuals and organizations in the indictment?
Yeah, so clearly, and I know you know this, I mean, the indictment clearly says we take no view on whether Americans were involved. It doesn't say there were no Americans involved. It just says we're not talking about that now. And you know, the longer this goes, and I began, Jake, you and I have talked about this now for a long time, thinking this is going to end up kind of in an inconclusive cloud. You know, if you want to see X, you'll see it. If you want to see Y, you'll see it. But the more this goes, the richer in detail we get, the more I begin to believe that we're probably going to see a widening circle here of people becoming involved. Let me say something.
In terms of indicted?
Yeah. Let me. It's not a prediction, an observation. All right. I would not be surprised if this were not the last indictment we see that doesn't mention an American.
So in other words, there will be another indictment, and you'll think there'll be Americans involved. Assuming the meeting goes off as planned, what do you think this indictment does in terms of the political support for President Trump's claim that this is all just nonsense? When his own administration, the Justice Department, is like saying, no, here's fact one, fact two, fact three.
So I read the indictment. It's a fascinating read, and it's not that long. People ought to take a look at it. And my first reaction as I began to read it was, yeah, like we said,
right?
Because it's absolutely consistent with the assessment of the intelligence community. But it has magnificent, what I think is forensic detail that the Bureau was able to put together. Who did what, when, at what time, with what tools, for what purpose, against what target. And Jake, to kind of spin that wheel one more time, this is largely, I think, forensic information. Imagine what the Mueller team has available with regard to this activity from other sources that they would clearly not choose to put in what would be a public indictment.
In other words, this is, in your tradecraft, you would say signals intelligence, not necessarily human intelligence.
It signals, yes, sort of.
Okay.
It signals intelligence after the fact. It's crime scene intelligence.
Okay.
It's going back through the logs. It's going back through otherwise available records, but very hard to do, very massive, but you've seen what they've put together. There's no evidence in my reading of the indictment of any evidence in there from what I would call the other side of the screen, what it is the other guys were thinking, doing between and among themselves.
I want to get your reaction to something President Trump said this morning, and I think what's important about this is the fact that he had already been briefed by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein that these indictments of 12 Russian military intelligence officers were coming, that was going to happen, and yet this is the way, on foreign soil, President Trump described the Mueller investigation.
I think that we're being hurt very badly by the, I would call it the witch hunt. I would call it the rigged witch hunt. I think that really hurts our country, and it really hurts our relationship with Russia. I think that we would have a chance to have a very good relationship with Russia and a very good relationship with President Putin.
So that's how he's talking about the investigation into a Russian cyber attack against the United States.
So it's further evidence of a style of speaking and acting that I think we've seen evident in the president, where he gets to create his own reality for his own purposes, for his utility at the moment. So the Germans are under the control of the Russians until that afternoon when they're not. And here we've got, as I said, this magnificent read of very rich detail that he still characterizes as a witch hunt. His departure point is, for a lot of what he says and does, is not what you and I would call objective reality. It's what he needs at the moment. And some people, when I get into arguments about this, say, but look what he does, not what he says. And my point is, what a candidate or what a president says is really important. And when you say untrue things, or let's go back to July 27th.
Yeah, let's talk about that. He called for the Russians to look into Hillary Clinton's emails, and the indictment says that on that day, the Russian hackers tried to get at Hillary Clinton's campaign emails in a different way.
Now, fascinating that Director Mueller decides to put that fine print into the indictment itself. He technically doesn't have to go that fine print for that issue, so he does put that in there. So at a minimum, all right, at a minimum, I think it's very clear evidence that when you say really stupid things, even as a candidate, you really put yourself in jeopardy. And at a minimum, that's where the president is now.
So the Russians took him seriously and literally. All right,
Could be.
Michael Hayden, thank you so much.